Hope. Chapter 1, Shadows of Quran. Quran, once a thriving city, now lay under a blanket of despair. The streets were empty, save for the occasional flicker of torchlight. The blight had devastated the land, turning fertile fields into barren wastelands. The river, once clear and pure, now ran sluggish and tainted. Ilara, a young healer, walked the silent streets, her cloak pulled tight against the cold. She had grown up in a family of healers, known for their wisdom. But the blight had claimed her parents, leaving her alone to face a world falling apart. Despite her efforts, she felt powerless, her hope dwindling with each passing day. On this night, Ilara found herself drawn to the outskirts of the city, to the ruins of an ancient temple. The temple, once a place of worship, was now a refuge for the lost. Inside, a few huddled figures sought shelter from the cold. Ilara joined them, her heart heavy with despair. An old man's voice broke the silence. "You look lost." Ilara turned to see an elderly man with sharp eyes studying her. "I suppose I am," she replied softly. The man nodded. "We all are, in our own way. But some more than others." Ilara felt a flicker of curiosity. "Who are you?" "My name is Kaldor," he said. "I was once a scholar, but now I search for something far more elusive." "What are you searching for?" Ilara asked. "Hope," Kaldor answered simply. The word felt foreign to Ilara. "Hope? How can you believe in hope after all that's happened?" Kaldor's eyes held a depth that startled her. "Because without hope, we are nothing. It's the only thing that can bring us back from the brink." Ilara was silent, Kaldor's words stirring something deep within her. Could she dare to hope again? She wasn't sure, but a tiny spark had been lit. Chapter 2, A Flicker in the Darkness. Dawn broke over Quran, weak and hesitant. Ilara, though sleepless, rose with the first light, her mind still turning over Kaldor's words. They had sparked something within her, a determination she hadn't felt in a long time. She walked to the marketplace, now a ghost of its former self. The stalls, once brimming with goods, were sparse and offered little. Ilara approached Maris, an old friend of her family, who managed a stall with withered vegetables and stale bread. "Ilara," Maris greeted her with a tired smile. "You're up early." "I couldn't sleep," Ilara admitted. "I wanted to see if I could help." Maris sighed. "There's not much left to do. The crops are failing, and the traders have almost stopped coming. We're all just trying to survive." Ilara scanned the pitiful offerings. "Any news about the blight?" Maris shook her head. "Nothing good. Some say it's only a matter of time before Quran is abandoned." The words chilled Ilara, but she forced herself to stay composed. "We can't just give up," she said, more to herself than to Maris. "There has to be something we can do." Maris gave her a sad, knowing look. "You've always had a strong spirit, Ilara, but sometimes survival is all we can hope for." Ilara's frustration flared, but she kept it in check. "Surviving isn't enough," she murmured. "We need to find a way to live again." But doubt gnawed at her, the same doubt that had taken hold of everyone in Quran. Yet, she clung to the tiny spark that Kaldor had ignited. Chapter 3, Seeking Answers. Determined not to let the spark of hope die, Ilara sought out Kaldor the next day. She found him near the temple ruins, deep in thought. "Kaldor," she called out, approaching him. "I need to understand more about hope. How do we hold on to it when everything around us is falling apart?" Kaldor looked at her with a gentle smile. "Hope isn't about ignoring the darkness, Ilara. It's about believing that the light will return, even when we can't see it." "But how do we find that light?" she asked, frustration tinged in her voice. "The light comes from within," Kaldor replied. "It's in our actions, our choices. Every time we choose to help others, to care, to believe in something better, we feed that light." Ilara pondered his words. She had been helping others, but it felt like a losing battle. What if our efforts aren't enough? They might not be, Caldor admitted. But the very act of trying keeps hope alive. It's when we stop trying that hope truly dies. Elara felt the weight of his words. She had been so close to giving up, to letting despair consume her. But now, she saw that hope was a choice, a difficult, sometimes painful choice, but one worth making. "Thank you, Caldor," she said, her voice firmer than before. "I'll try to keep that light alive." Caldor nodded. "And remember, Elara, you're not alone. There are others who feel as you do. Together, we can keep hope burning." Chapter 4, The River's Warning. As days passed, Elara noticed a growing restlessness in Quran. The river, once a source of life, had begun to dry up, its waters dwindling to a mere trickle. The people's fear was palpable, and talk of abandoning the city grew louder. Elara couldn't ignore the sense of urgency. She knew that if the river dried up completely, Quran's fate would be sealed. She needed to act, but how? The blight had drained the land of its vitality, and no one seemed to have answers. Desperate, Elara returned to the temple to seek Caldor's counsel. She found him meditating by a small, flickering candle. "Caldor, the river, it's almost gone. What can we do?" Caldor opened his eyes, his expression calm despite the gravity of the situation. "The river is a reflection of the city's spirit, Elara. As hope fades, so too does the river. We must find a way to restore that hope, or the river will vanish altogether." "But how?" Elara asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. "By uniting the people," Caldor said. "We must remind them of what they're fighting for, each other, their families, their future. If they can see that their actions matter, that they can make a difference, it might be enough to turn the tide." Elara nodded, understanding what needed to be done. She had to rally the people, to reignite the spark of hope that had been all but extinguished. It was a daunting task, but she knew she had to try. Chapter 5, The Call to Unity. Elara gathered a few trusted friends and began spreading Caldor's message. They went door to door, speaking to anyone who would listen, urging them not to give up. At first, their efforts were met with skepticism, but slowly, a small group began to form, a group that believed in the possibility of change. Together, they organized meetings, where Caldor spoke of hope and resilience. His words resonated with those who had long been silent, rekindling a sense of purpose. Elara watched as the group grew, as more and more people joined, their despair gradually giving way to determination. The river, once a trickle, began to flow a little stronger, as if responding to the renewed spirit of the city. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them going. Elara felt the weight of her decision to fight for hope lifting, replaced by a sense of community she hadn't felt in years. But the struggle was far from over. The blight still loomed, and the challenges ahead were great. Yet, for the first time in a long while, Elara felt that they might just have a chance. As they gathered for another meeting, Elara stood beside Caldor, looking out at the faces of those who had chosen hope over despair. She realized that, no matter what happened next, they had already won a small victory by refusing to surrender. Chapter 6, The Light Returns. The day came when Elara and her group confronted the blight head-on. They worked tirelessly to restore the land, using every bit of knowledge they had. It was grueling, often thankless work, but they were driven by the hope that had been reignited within them. The city's spirit grew stronger, and with it, the river began to return to its former glory. The people, once defeated, now worked together, their collective efforts creating a ripple of change that spread throughout Quran. Elara stood by the river one evening, watching as the water flowed freely once more. The city, though still scarred, was healing. The blight had not been fully eradicated, but they had found a way to live with it, to push back against its darkness with the light of their hope. Caldor approached, standing beside her. "You did it, Elara," he said softly. "You brought hope back to Quran." "We did it," Elara corrected.